Hi, Pete's fans. Welcome to another episode of For Pete's Sake, your podcast, Everything Peterborough Pete's. I'm your co-host, Josh Reeser, and as always, in the chair next to me, he was away last week, but we're happy to have him back. My twin brother, co-host, and encyclopedia of OHL knowledge, Matt Reeser. Good to have you back in the chair, buddy. We got some stuff to go over. We missed last week's recap, so fortunately, if there's a week to miss, I think it was last week where the Petes did not seem to show up, and they certainly put on more of a show for the fans this week. So we'll have a brief catch up from some news last week. We'll glance over the week that we wish didn't really happen, and then we will dive right back into a recap of the most recent games, recent Pete's news, some news around the OHL, and we're going to continue talking about playoff chances. That is where the Pete's focus needs to be. We are officially well into the second half of the season now, and it is time for the Pete's to start putting up or shutting up, and we are going to look into what they need to do and how realistic it is and give our take. But we'll start off with some Pete's news. First of all, you've probably heard by now, but there was a commitment to the NCAA for a couple players. It was Jonathan Malee and Gavin Bryant, both committing to Sacred Heart University, which is a private Roman Catholic university that plays in the NCAA Division I, based in Connecticut, and they will start there next season. So congratulations to both Petes. They are the first two to commit to the NCAA following that new news that players are now eligible. Excuse me. Also, there were three Petes coming or being listed on the NHL Central Scouting Rankings for the upcoming NHL Draft. So there is some buzz around some Peterborough Petes, and you probably aren't too surprised at these names. They are some of the young core players. First off, defenseman Carson Cameron. He cracks the top 100, listed as 87th overall. Caden Taylor comes in at 113th, and Aiden Young is 183rd. There is still a chance for those guys to move up or down depending on how the rest of the season goes. But I think a strong stretch and even a playoff push could certainly move those guys up into the draft rankings, and I think those guys are deservedly getting a look from some NHL teams at this point. You look at Carson Cameron, solid two-way defenseman that's only seems to get better. He's been thrust right into like a major role with the Petes right from day one as a young player, and you see how he handles it. So not surprising to see why he would be coveted. Caden Taylor, undeniable offensive skills. He's got a wicked release, good hands, good creativity. Still needs to round out a bit of his 200-foot game, but that's something that, can be taught with the right coach and system. And then you look at Aiden Young, a little bit of a smaller body, but he's got awesome hands, dynamic playmaking, and a really fun player to watch. Other guys that were left off the list, like Nico Addy, Rio Kaiser, they could possibly play their way onto the list with some strong play down the stretch. Or even if they don't get drafted, you hear guys, like the newest acquisition, Brady Stonehouse, who don't get drafted but get invited to camp and can still make a big difference. So particularly those two guys are big bodies and may draw attention from NHL clubs even if they're not selected. So good on those three players, and we will definitely have a keen eye on the NHL draft this year because there are likely to be some Pete's names called. So good on you, and congratulations, boys. All right, we are going to briefly, like I said, just go over last week. I don't want to get too much into it because it was ugly. We missed the recap last week because Matt was unable to be here. We decided to postpone it for a week. It was a tough one. They were coming off such a great week the week before where they had beaten Barrie and they had beaten Niagara, and they had taken the Bulldogs to overtime, or was it a shootout? I can't remember at this point. I think it was a shootout. So they'd taken 5 of 6 against strong teams, all in the East. Looked like they were on the rise, heading in to play the Sioux Greyhounds at home. Everything was set up for, a game that was very winnable, and they came out flat and got shut out 7-0.
Yeah.
7-0 against the Sioux Greyhounds. It's the second time against the Sioux that they've been shut out this year. So for whatever reason, they just have our number. And it was an ugly game. The Petes were lifeless. Right from the get-go, their passes were off. And the Sioux Greyhounds just played their game, finished well. And the Petes, it was disappointing to see, they were not able to get back into the game. And then after the game was kind of out of it, some undisciplined penalties and frustration took over, which you never want to see. So unfortunate that had to happen when the Petes were coming off such a high, but it was a very humbling game. They followed it up, unfortunately, a couple days later with another stinker. It was the Erie Otters that came in to face the Petes. And it looked like it was going to be another shutout, but the Petes did manage to score 1 goal late to salvage a shutout. And I think it was a 5-1 game.
Yeah, 5-1.
5-1 game, a loss to Erie. Erie is a little bit ahead of Sioux in the standings, but certainly a team that the Petes can play with if they played their game. And again, I saw some sloppy hockey. And again, I saw some of those habits creep in where you get frustrated and you take penalties, and that just is not a good way to get back into the game. You want to keep focusing on your game, draw penalties, maybe get some power play, some momentum going, but they just were undisciplined. So tough week. Hopefully that's in the past. They hung their goalies out to dry a little bit as well, so I felt bad because the goalie statistics took a hit. Back-to-back games, giving up 7 and then 5 goals, but not really much you can blame on the goalies. The team didn't play very well in front of them. It's going to happen. We just have to make sure it's not a regular thing. And one thing I do love, they did talk about it with head coach Ron Wilson, and he was very blunt, saying it wasn't good enough. Practice was hard after those games. He said we had to get back to the drawing board and we had to take accountability and look ourselves in the mirror and say we can't take nights off, especially where we are in the standings. If we want to progress at all, we have to dig and earn for every point. We can't be getting undisciplined. We have to stick to our game. And so he flat out said, I worked the boys hard. It was a tough practice. We did a video sesh. And I love hearing that. I love hearing the accountability. And if the guys throw up a couple stinkers, I think it's more than fair for the coach to demand more when the guys can bring it. So anyways, moving on from that week, the Petes came back home for another game against the current, I guess, Memorial Cup champion, Saginaw Spirit. And this was not a shutout. This was an absolute fireworks display. The Petes were missing some key players. So going into the week, they found out Carson Cameron and Graydon Strohack would be out for 2 games. Carson Cameron's was from a big hit in the Erie Otters game. So hopefully he's okay down the stretch. They may need him. But the Petes were able to win this game against the former champs 8-6. I'm sure it's a game that the fans love to watch, but the coach isn't super thrilled with such a high-scoring game. Maybe you'd like to see a bit tighter defense, but you take wins anytime you can get them this year. Zach Bowen made his return to the lineup. He got the start in this one. Saginaw actually started the game on fire, and their special teams came out scoring a power play goal and a shorthanded goal, and they built up a 3-0 lead within the first 10 minutes. Good on the Petes to respond and not fold. You came off a week where you got behind and you just couldn't get back into it, and it looked maybe like another ugly night was starting. But the Petes did respond in this one. A shorthanded goal by Aiden Young, I thought Jonathan Malee was the only one scoring shorthanded goals, but Aiden Young puts one in. Jonathan Malee also added one to keep the game close heading into that second period, and that is when the Petes woke up. McCallum, Matejchuk, Eula all scored in the second period, and the Petes actually went into the final frame with a lead, up 5-4. In the third period, Faulkner and Matejchuk again put the Petes up 7-4, building up that 3-goal lead. Another surge by Saginaw, a little bit concerning that they took their foot off the gas for a little bit. Saw them actually get it to 7-6. It looked like we might have an overtime or a big barn burner finish, but it would be sealed with an empty net goal by McCallum to hold on to an 8-6 victory. And in that game, our newest import, Rio Kaiser, actually got his first OHL point on that Faulkner goal. So very nice to see the Petes come back and get a win. Like I said, maybe not the exact way you want your team to win if you're hoping for tight checking defensive style hockey, but you take a win, and certainly fun for the fans, and nice to see that the Petes can still score against a good team.
Yeah. It was a good win. Mm-hmm. It was a much needed.
Absolutely.
I think morale boost for the team. I think if they got blown out in this one, it would have been difficult. But they hung with it.
Yeah.
Down probably 2 of their top 3 defensemen.
Yep.
So really young core. They had Marinetti was back in the lineup. Gowan was in. Ula was in. So 3 rookies.
Yeah.
It's a good win.
Yeah, and nice to see that those guys can come in and handle a team that's strong, that recently won, the title. So, looking forward. I think that's big confidence boost for those guys.
Yeah.
And then they moved on. The next game was an Oshawa Generals clash. And Maddie, how did this one go against our bitter rivals?
Yeah, so this score, Oshawa ended up winning 6-3. Could have easily been 10. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, this one, it looked like the Petes coming off the back-to-back were a little tired. Mm-hmm. Couldn't get their legs going. And Oshawa was rested, came in, throwing everything at the net possible, making the Petes take lots of penalties. I think they had 8 power plays in this one. So you can't give Oshawa 8 power plays if you're expecting to beat a team with that much skill up front with Ritchie and Seneca and Barlow and Morelli, and they have too much skill back there to do that. And the only reason this game was particularly close was Zach Bowen. Mm-hmm. For 2 periods, he kept them in this game. Oshawa got up 1-0, and then the Petes scored the next 3. Mm-hmm. But they were outshot 39-11 after 2 periods, and it was 3-3. And the second period was 21-3 in shots in favor of Oshawa. So you get the idea that Bowen was standing on his head. No one but Barlow could score a goal until they put 4 in the net, and then Oshawa added 2 insurance goals. But Colby Barlow, that was their big addition. Other than Gibson, they got Gibson too at the deadline. Mm-hmm. But that's why you do it early in the year, because he's got chemistry now. Puts 4 in the back of the net and gets another assist for them on the night. So you can't really ask for much more out of an acquisition than that. For the Petes, it was nice to see they could finish when they got their opportunities, which was good to see. Mm-hmm. So you got Stonehouse getting on the board. Taylor scored. And Fitzgerald got a nice backhand goal.
Oh, it was a really nice toe drag around the defense, and then he put it in. Yeah, I liked it.
So it was nice to see them capitalize on their chances, but this was a night where Oshawa was just putting too much on the net and getting too many opportunities. And when you give quality guys that are top round picks, mm-hmm. you're going to be in trouble.
For sure.
And that's what happened. They tied it at 3, and then the third period they put 3 more in the back of the net, and they win 6-3. Mm-hmm. And the Petes also started to just take penalties at the end of this one. Mm-hmm. Tried to get Oshawa to fight them and scrap after the whistles. I think there was 3 guys that had misconducts. I think on the Petes, I think McCallum got tossed.
Yeah.
Lads got tossed. I think Stonehouse got tossed.
Yeah.
Like they just kind of, they didn't do anything I thought that was dirty, but they just kind of got rattled a little bit by how much pressure Oshawa was putting on them.
Yeah, and you've seen that in the last 3 losses. You know, the 2 shutouts we mentioned, Oshawa. Like, it's a troubling, habit. You see what the Pete's getting undisciplined when they're down. Like, I love to see guys that are physical and that play hard and that make it life miserable in other teams. But you also don't want to see undisciplined play.
Yeah.
You don't want to see bad sportsmanship. So that's something they have to keep an eye on. You want the guys to play with passion. You don't want them to like losing.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between hating losing and channeling it into a positive way versus a negative way that hurts the team. And I think I saw a little bit too much of that in the 3 losses.
Yeah.
So just something to keep an eye on going forward.
Yeah. I think there's a difference too from a spark and just doing something that's not a spark.
Yeah.
So like for instance, they were losing 4-3 in the Oshawa game. Marinetti's trying to get in a scrap with Martin on Oshawa, who's a tough guy, to try and get his team going.
Yeah.
That's a spark.
Yeah.
But then a player, I don't rip on players on the team, but there was a player on the team that took a really dumb stick infraction behind the play that was up the ice. The puck was behind him.
Yeah.
He whacks the guy, gets a 2-minute takes the power play away from the Petes because they're on a power play at this point. So you're on a power play down 4-3 with the potential to tie it. Not saying we have an amazing power play, but you're still...
Yeah. You got a chance.
They're short for 2 minutes, so you can rest up a little bit. You can get some chances on the power play, maybe tie it up.
Yep.
Takes a penalty, negates the power play. They score, so now it's 5-3, and then he takes a 10 after he gets out of the box.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a spark. That's,
Yeah.
to me, that's just, I would call it unselfish, kind of a selfish play for a player to take.
Absolutely.
Especially because it was one of their veteran players that they need to be in the lineup when you're playing a back-to-back. So
then the younger guys, whether they see, maybe they think that's okay, but
there's a difference between getting pushed around, if that's different, and just kind of trying to you just get off your game. And I think the Petes have made themselves get off their game a little bit too much in the last 4.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of got to change if you're going to make the playoffs, because in the playoffs you're going to get shoved, pushed.
Agreed.
And if you're going to make it, which they still can, which we'll go over soon, they got to kind of nip that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what you said. I think, like you said, don't want to be pushed around. If the other team is taking liberties, protect yourself. The Petes have the personnel to do that, and use it to spark, wins, throw the other team off their game. Perfectly fine, but don't use it just when you're frustrated to take out your emotion and passion, because it hurts the team. We've talked about it a little bit, so I won't keep dwelling on it. But one thing I'll say, it reminds me of like when a couple of years ago we traded for Brennan Ottman. And he had some moments where he would, he played with a lot of passion. That's what made him a great player. But when he was thrown off his game, he would take some penalties that cost the team a little bit. And then he started to figure it out. And come playoff time, I noticed he really worked on, I'm going to be that tough physical player, but I'm not going to react. I'm not going to hurt my team. And he was a big reason why the team was able to go on a run in those playoffs. He was a dominant offensive player, and I noticed he really focused on that. So maybe they can draw in some of the guys that were around that experience if they manage to squeak into the playoffs, and even down the stretch. They should be playing games as if they're playoff games now, where they are in the year. But anyways, just throw that out there. But let's move on to our 3 stars of the week. Who you got, Matt? Some guys that stood out. We could probably, that 8-6 game, nice to see some goals and some stats. So probably, as always, a couple guys we could give it to, but throw out your kudos for the week.
Yeah, so for me, Faulkner is number 3. He started the kind of rally against Saginaw with a really good hustle play, got a nice pass over to Aiden Young and started the team going on the score sheet. And then he scored a goal and got another assist against Saginaw. So he got 3 points in that one. And then he got another assist against Oshawa. So a 4-point week for him. When he gets his energy going, he can really spark this team. We've seen it a few times this year. I don't think he gets recognized as much as he probably should, just because he doesn't put up as many points. but he is in the plus on a team that has a very
Negative goal
negative
differential.
differential.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
he is trusted by his coach to go out there and spark his team. And I thought he did that against Saginaw, and he plays his role really effectively for this team, and that's why he's the third star for me.
Yeah.
Second star, we're going to go with McCallum. Got 2 goals and an assist against Saginaw. And when he's on offensively, this team is different. They're harder to beat. So I thought he had a really strong game against Saginaw. He's had a tough year, I'm sure, from his standards too. I thought he probably thinks he should be scoring more than he has and getting more points. But maybe this is the spark to get him going.
Yeah.
And then our first star for me, it's got to be Matejček.
Yeah, agreed.
2 defensemen out, Cameron and Strohak, played huge minutes. Gets 2 goals against Saginaw. You can't say enough about the job he does back there when stabilizing that defense when you have 3 rookies in the lineup.
He's stepped up all year. He's been a guy that I've been impressed with all year, and yeah, you certainly saw it this week as well.
Yeah, like him and Kaiser were on every other shift.
Yeah.
Just because they had to, and to score 2 goals and play that many minutes is really impressive.
Absolutely.
And he can come back next year, which is exciting.
Yeah.
It's a good problem to have when you have a guy that's this good and has another
year of eligibility.
You can still build around him, and I thought he's proven that you can build a defense around him.
For sure. I agree. Yeah, I've been really impressed with his play lately, and I think I started to notice kind of right before Christmas. Like, he's been good all year, but when I first started to really pay attention, it was like right before Christmas when they started to heat up, and then it's no surprise when he gets going, the team gets going as well. So like you said, a very valuable acquisition, and a great defenseman back there.
Yeah.
So let's keep
also shout out to Ula. He had a good week.
Yep.
He looks like he could be a top 4 defenseman in this
agree.
league.
I think he's got a good future in the OHL.
His ability to escape pressure with his speed.
Yep.
He's making really good offensive plays now. He's jumping in, making solid passes, breakout passes, playing. He hits harder than you think.
Yep.
Not dirty, but he always finds a way to make an impact on that side of the game as well. So I think Ula is going to be a very good defenseman for this team for a long time.
I agree. I'm excited for the future with him as well. Yeah. Awesome. Well, the playoff push we mentioned. Even after, a couple, they were riding high, and then they win 1 out of the next 4 games, but we have not given up hope. We're going to throw around that P word, playoffs. Peterborough Pete's 23 games remaining. They have 4 games against the Ottawa 67s, who they are chasing. Both of those, there's some back-to-backs there. I think all 4 of those back-to-backs. So
we go to Ottawa.
It's Ottawa, and then Ottawa again later on. So those are massive, massive games that can swing either way. Like, they're essentially, each one of those is a 4-point game when you're chasing the 67s. So the Petes have to play those ones like it's desperation time. 12 more home games, so make sure you guys get out and support the boys every time you can, because if we want playoff hockey, we have to be tough to play at home. So come support the boys, and if playoffs aren't in the cards this year, it's always a long summer when the Petes aren't around. So make sure you get your fill while you can. And they still have some games against some tough opponents like Windsor, Kitchener, and London out west. But as we've seen, the Petes play strong teams well. So maybe that helps the boys. They'll bring their A game against those guys. But I'm particularly intrigued to see how they face against those Eastern Conference opponents, particularly the Ottawa 67s, because every game is the most important game of the year now. That's how you have to factor that in. If you want any shot at the playoffs, you have to play every game like it is a game 7 in the playoffs. You got to start making some points. Eventually you're going to run out of runway. There is still a bit of time. Like we said, 23 games. But you need to go on, start winning some consecutive games back to back, and get that mojo going. And then if the Petes, heat up down the stretch and squeak in, like, you never want to see face a team in the playoffs that is coming in on an absolute heater. So you never know. The Petes, maybe they heat up down the stretch, get in, and then
Yeah.
go for a bit of a run.
Yep.
It would be fun. I would love to see it, but the work needs to start now. So next game, I am labeling as the biggest game of the year because every game on out is officially the biggest game of the year if they want any shot whatsoever.
Yeah.
So now you're saying a couple other teams that they're facing we're going to focus in on. It's the two teams ahead of them. So North Bay Battalion, what are you seeing there?
Yeah, so they're 8 clear of the Petes right now. 3 games remaining against Ottawa. We don't have to play them anymore, so there's no games where we can kind of take 2 points from them.
They have 2 games at hand
2
on
games
us.
at hand, yeah. 12 home games remaining.
Yeah.
They have a really tough last 10 games, which helps the Petes. That includes Kitchener, 3 matchups against top teams in the Eastern Conference. So they have a tough schedule down the stretch. And because the East is so close, I don't see Eastern teams resting their players because it's so tight at the top. They need every point they can get to get the number 1 seed. So that's what their kind of battle will be for North Bay Battalion is that last kind of 10 games. But they do have those 3 games against Ottawa, which are going to be huge. And they have playoff experience because this team's gone to the Eastern Final the last 3 years.
Yep.
And they know how to win. They've traded guys, but they still have the little Blanc brothers. They still have a good goalie. They got a win this weekend that they shouldn't have against Sudbury 3-2, where they got outshot 43-20 and won. So they have a goalie that can steal them a game. And then right above them is Ottawa, who's only 9 points up on the Petes. Same amount of games as the Petes, so 23 remaining. They have 4 against the Pete and 3 against North Bay. So 7 of their games are against those teams that are right there with them. So they have probably the most favorable schedule because if you take care of business, you're looking pretty good.
Yeah, their fate's gotten in their own hands. Yeah, which is where you want to be.
And they have 12 home games remaining, which includes a stretch of 9 at home out of 11.
Wow.
Because they hosted the World Juniors, right? So
right. They were on the road for it. Yeah.
So they have those 9 games, and those 2 road games are the Petes.
Yep.
So they're home for 9, and the only 2 road games they have in that span is coming to the Memorial Center. So they're going to be at home, they're going to be rested, they're going to be at their hometown. They still have Kitchener and Windsor, plus 2 matchups against Oshawa and Kingston. So they have some tough games for sure. I think Ottawa is probably the more catchable team out of these 2. They need to catch both. But I think Ottawa's lost like 9 in a row before they won this week. They beat Kingston. 5-4.
Yeah.
So they had a big win. But if I was saying which team I would want to catch, I think will be easier, probably Ottawa. Just because North Bay is big, experienced.
Yeah.
Still got some more skill, I would say, than Ottawa because Ottawa unloaded.
Yeah.
But it's doable.
Yep.
But you got to start winning.
It's tough to see that there are a couple of games actually between North Bay and Ottawa because you don't know who to cheer for. Like on one hand,
you need one of them to not get points.
Yeah, it can't be overtime games.
No.
But if you want us to catch Ottawa, you're cheering for North Bay, but then we're also chasing North Bay. So is it more beneficial for Ottawa? And then, it's tough to know. So, maybe a split. Maybe one of the games is won by Ottawa and the other 2 by North Bay, and then if we take care of 4 against Ottawa like that, that would be huge. So really intrigued to see how those ones go. But first of all, before we get down that road, we have our week ahead this week, and we have some other teams we need to take care of first. So week ahead, Brampton Steelheads are coming to play the Peterborough Petes. It's the first of 4 meetings.
Haven't played them yet.
Between these 2 teams. That's crazy that we haven't played the Steelheads yet.
We got 4 matchups still.
Wild. They sold the farm, as you know, to go on a run this year. Carson Raycroft comes in. And now they actually have another former Pete in Connor Smith, who was acquired at deadline time. So make sure you keep your head up when Big Rig is on the ice. Great presence back here for a couple years. Fan favorite. Drafted by the Anaheim Ducks. We remember his big play. So we'll welcome him back to the building, and then we will beat his team. That's how we'll show him his respect.
Yeah.
They're actually playing better of late because they were off to kind of a disappointing start in the standings.
Yeah.
Thought maybe they should be higher, but they have at least a point in their last 7 games. Some other news from them: they did pick up Chase Lefebvre earlier in the year. He was traded to the Steelheads. He is currently no longer playing on their roster. He is playing for the Haliburton County Huskies, and he was released to make room for the other former Pete, Connor Smith, that we just mentioned. So Lefebvre will not be there. So the Brampton Steelheads matchups against Peterborough this week, and we need to take care of business.
Home and home.
Home and home. Let's beat them here. Let's beat them there. Let's beat them everywhere.
Yeah.
I love it. And then we have another matchup against the Generals. Let's shake off that last game, which was simply not good enough. A 6-3 game where we were very outplayed. First 5 meetings that we've played Oshawa so far this year were 2 goals or less, and 3 of them actually went into extra time. So we've shown we can play with Oshawa when we play our games. This is a tough one because it's at the tail end of a busy 3-game week. Having said that, no excuses this time of the year. You have to step up, play every game like it's your last. Every game is absolutely crucial. So Oshawa is currently battling Kingston, Brantford for top spot in that Eastern Conference. You know they're motivated to get there. They want the number 1 spot, and they're trying to they're trying to catch Barrie for top spot in the Eastern Conference, but they're battling Kingston, Brantford for the division. So they absolutely want to be one of the top teams, if not the top team in the East. So they have a lot to play for still, and it's a rivalry. So anytime the Petes come in, you know it's going to be a tough matchup. So hopefully we can steal a victory from those guys back here Saturday night. So Thursday night, home, Brampton Steelheads. Friday night, down in Brampton, and then back on Saturday, a 3-3.
Pink in the rink.
Pink in the rink night is also this week, which is a great cause. Get out, support their Hockey Fights Cancer initiative, and support the boys, because like we said, 12 games left. Any hope for playoffs is absolutely riding on the boys having good success, and they build off the fans. So let's support them no matter what. We're proud of the boys. We want to see some more hockey. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, we need at least 4 points this week.
Absolutely. And we can do it. Let's get 6.
Yeah.
Let's go. We need 4. Let's get 6. Let's get a run going. I absolutely believe it can happen, and I hope we see you guys down there supporting the boys live. If you can't, at least follow it on the radio or on your TV, and let's get loud and proud for that maroon and white.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again. This is our podcast for the week. We hope to have another show for you next week where we are celebrating some victories and feeling good about ourselves again. You can catch our episodes on Facebook and on YouTube, and if you like to listen to the audio, we also upload to Spotify. We'll have all that information on our social media pages, which is at 4TB Pete's Sake on Instagram, and our YouTube page is For Pete's Sake, where we will post all of our details as well as game day lineups and such. So thanks again for listening. Let's get them, and as always, go Pete's, go.